What's up, fellow internet denizens? It's December and reindeer are a-flying. I've always loved flying deer as a concept. As a kid, I would stay up late to hear the clattering of hooves on Christmas Eve, though really the clattering was just a nest of raccoons scrambling around at 3 a.m. The Rankin Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie was my favorite Christmas movie ever before I discovered Die Hard and A Muppet Christmas Carol. We all know that Rudolph was bullied for his perceived deformities, but I think that now that we've seen that his bullies have reformed and they've been working together for 86 years, we ought to talk about Rudolph's coworkers, all of the other flying deer. Now, you may be wondering, what is a reindeer? Well, reindeer are a subspecies of caribou that was domesticated a few thousand years ago by the Sami and Finns. They are the only deer species where both the males and females have antlers, and the females keep their antlers for longer than the males. The males shed in November, and the females shed them in May. Reindeer like to migrate in swarms of up to 500,000 individuals during the spring, and they migrate up to 3,000 miles a year. Their eyes change color depending on the season. When it's summer, their eyes are gold, and when it's winter, their eyes are blue. They can also see ultraviolet light, and they are the only mammals able to do so. According to the Telegraph, it would take 5.6 million standard reindeer to pull Santa's sleigh filled with toys for every single child, but we all know that Santa's reindeer are a little bit different. Alaska's Department of Fish and Wildlife has its own page about Santa's reindeer, which lists them as a distinct subspecies and reports that their lifespans are infinite, and that they like to eat blueberries and carrots, and they only ever migrate on one day of the year, where they help Santa deliver gifts to all the children in the world. Although, it's worth noting that some scientists do not agree that this qualifies as a migration. It also states that all reindeer of this subspecies likely retain their antlers year-round, though more research is necessary. So, you know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen, but why are they named that? Well, Dasher, Dancer, and Prancer's names are fairly easy to figure out. This is a simple case of nominative determinism, and their names are simply what they do. Much like famed turtle racer Usain Bolt and acclaimed urologist Dr. Richard Chop. Now, Vixen is interesting because her name means female fox. Vixens are sly and quick on their feet, so I would assume she's the smartest of the bunch. Comets are bright, quick-moving, cold celestial bodies that orbit our sun in an ellipsis and appear curved in the sky, so I'd imagine Comet is rather quick, but she leans a little in one direction or another, much like your average Kroger shopping cart. Cupid is the Roman name of Eros, the god of love, and I'd like to think he's the friendly one who keeps the team together. Now, Donner and Blitzen have a unique story behind them. Their initial names were Dunder and Bliksem, or the Dutch words for thunder and lightning, respectively. Then, a while after Clement C. Moore first wrote A Visit from St. Nicholas, his publisher changed the reindeer's names to Donner and Blitzen, the German words for the same meteorological phenomena. L. Frank Baum actually had a different list of reindeer in his 1902 work, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, and those names were Flossie and Glossy, Racer and Pacer, Reckless and Speckless, Fearless and Peerless, and Ready and Steady. Now, the first mention of Santa Claus having reindeer was in an 1821 booklet from New York called A New Year's Present to the Little Ones from 5 to 12, number 3, The Children's Friend, where it states, Old Santa Claus, with much delight, his reindeer drives this frosty night, o'er chimney tops and tracks of snow, to bring his yearly gifts to you. The anonymous author of this booklet claimed he was inspired by stories his mother, who was allegedly from the Arctic Circle, had told of reindeer who could fly. We'll get back to that in a bit, actually. Then, in 1837, Clement C. Moore named 8 of the 9 reindeer in his famous poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. Rudolph was named separately in a 1939 coloring book distributed by a department store in Chicago. Now, flying reindeer are a relatively common motif in Arctic Circle mythology. The Sami, or the native people from northern Scandinavia, have several myths and legends about celestial reindeer. The sun goddess owned a cosmic herd of reindeer who would graze in the sky. One constellation depicts a hunter shooting an arrow at one of them, and allegedly, when the arrow hits the reindeer, the world will end. The Greenland Inuit believed that when somebody dies, they could choose to hunt caribou in the sky forever. Finally, the Koryak people of Kamchatka believed that their creator brought reindeer down from the sky to help nourish his people. While there are a lot of stories out there about flying flying reindeer, it's worth noting that they're not the only flying deer. In the Ozarks, there is a type of large white deer that can only be seen by the pure of heart. They're called the snoffus, and they use their wings to fly to the highest branch of the tallest trees. Or they don't have wings and they just leap there. Sometimes they sing like birds, and other times they howl. Instead of antlers, they have plum or apple or dogwood branches growing from their heads. The reason for this varies, but one story states that a botanist grafted an Arkansas black apple onto the snoffus's antlers. Another one has a hunter who ran out of bullets and used a plum pit instead. The snoffus also breathes blue smoke out, and this can be seen as a bad omen, again depending on who you ask. Every single website I found with information about the snoffus had wildly different stories and details about whether or not it had wings, the type of flower that sprouts from its head, or who can see it. I'm actually okay with this. This is just how folklore works. Most stories agree, though, that the snoffus is pale, rarely seen, agile, has flowering antlers, and breathes blue smoke. Finally, let's talk about the periton. The periton is not a mythological or folkloric creature, and was instead invented by an Argentinian man named Jorge Luis Borges for his book of imaginary beings. For those who don't know, Borges also wrote The Library of Babel, which I haven't read in a while, but I really enjoyed. Peritons are large deer with wings. In some depictions, they have no forehoofs, which makes them appear more avian. Now, according to Borges, it is said that peritons were the reason that Rome fell, and that they are mortal enemies of mankind who actively hunt us for prey. They originally come from Atlantis, and their shadows are human-shaped, until they eat a human, in which case their shadow briefly becomes periton-shaped. They also like to eat dirt for some reason. Honestly, for a creature so ubiquitous in fantasy books and tabletop games, I am shocked and slightly underwhelmed that the periton is a relatively recent creation. It feels so mythical. We have stories about flesh-eating horses, the lost continent of Atlantis, winged animals of all kinds, and flying reindeer, so peritons should fit right in, right? I actually think that Borges was kind of a genius for coming up with a critter that feels so mythical that modern fantasy has accepted it. Are there any flying deer that I missed in my research? Let me know below. Happy Christmas, Yule, Hanukkah, Kuvia Sukvik, Festivus, and anything else you might be celebrating. I've been Alien Daydreamer, and I am out. Bye!